Hello, my name is Mark Baines, and welcome to Training Made Fun's presentation on exercise is stress, but should it be stressful? Exercise itself is stress. It does provide us stress that potentially can benefit us, can improve us. At the same time, many of those same stresses can hurt us or cause us more problems than good. Exercise by itself, in itself, theoretically, is great. At times, it can be too much. It can be poor timed, it can be too long, it can be without rest, which is not a good thing, it can be too intense. All sorts of things can go wrong in the attempt to make exercise something that's beneficial to us. Unfortunately, far too many people feel that exercise is not worth the time and effort made to get the benefits from it. Because the fact of the matter is, exercise might make you feel better for today, but the things you're doing exercise-wise to get the benefit of strength, endurance, flexibility, mobility, moving better, feeling stronger, having more endurance, having more explosiveness, having more power. All those things don't happen overnight. They take several weeks or even several months, depending on the level we're looking to see improvement, or to see even significant enough improvements to be able to see true benefit of the time we put in. Once we get there, be able to maintain it isn't quite so hard. Of course, we use the word maintain. The reality is you're either falling downward or you're increasing upward. It just happens at small amounts. It's hard to tell at times. That said, exercise itself is stress. We got to find that right stress. That's not easy. That idea of stress, when we undertake a stress for exercise, like we haven't done a squat in a while, or even go for a walk, let alone a jog or a run, or lift a weight over our head, any of those things, if we haven't done it in a long time, meaning several months or more, or never, all depending, the body has a hard time understanding what that stress is. Either it's never done it before, so it goes, what is this? And the muscle fibers have a difficult time, or the nervous system, we should say, has a difficult time firing the right muscle fibers, firing the right amount of muscle fibers, firing them in the right sequence, all those things, let alone having the endurance capacity and force production capacity of those fibers. There's so much at stake with the nervous system when we start performing exercise. So consequently, when we perform this exercise stress, the body says, what is that? Goes to this alarm stage that Hans Selye and Walter Cannon kind of formulated from a stress standpoint in general in regard to the body, cellularly, what's going on in the body, causing it potentially more harm or more benefit, right? It's always risk versus benefit. We want to see eustress, not distress. We want to see positive improvement from the exercise stress we undergo, not just negative stress or distress causing more problems, not improvements. So to do that, we have to find that right stress, whatever it might be, which is usually something that's just a touch beyond what someone's done before or hasn't done in a while, not anything extreme, the right stress, so we get hopefully the proper movement itself, which is not easy in itself, and we do it for the proper duration of time and with the proper intensity. And what should happen over time with a period of a few times doing it, meaning a few days you've tried it, or a couple weeks or whatnot, all depending, maybe several weeks, body starts going, okay, now we get this idea. It learns to fire the right muscle fibers in the right sequence, let alone the right number of fibers, and gets that muscular system to be able to fire the right actions for the joints to get the proper movements, and we start to gain benefits from doing it. And that said, there comes a point over time where sometime in the next several weeks to several months, most likely several weeks, in most cases, if someone is consistent about what they do, they become adapted to that particular stress. It doesn't mean you have to give up on the exercise or the movement you're undergoing. It means you have to understand specifically what it is the body is adapted to. Too often people just jump and change from one exercise to the next, thinking you have to, quote, challenge the body with something unusual or different, and that's just not the case. When we learn to walk, we don't learn to walk differently. We learn to walk at different speeds. We learn to walk for different distances, that kind of thing. We don't have to learn to walk a different way. We get way too caught up sometimes in a given exercise by itself that you have to change that exercise. You may not have to. You may just have to change the parameters of how often you do it, the loading in which you do it, the duration of time in which you undergo that stress, the rest periods, and none of those things are easy. If that was easy to figure out the right exercise stress with the right work period, the right rest period, at the right speed, and the right weight you lift it, and all those things, if that were easy, then it would be very easy to turn out elite level athletes in so many people. That's just not the case. Genetics do play a role, yes, but we never really know exactly how far we can take someone's training until we've taken the time to properly train. So it's going to take a while to figure that out. We can speculate. We're probably going to know if the person is going to be able to jump 8 feet in the air and jump over a high jump bar, or be able to run a sub 10-second 100-meter dash, or even sub 11, anything sub 12 even. We'll be able to probably tell to some extent for some people at some ages if that's going to happen or not. But for the most part, we don't really know how well someone's going to improve until we find the appropriate stress, then begin undergoing that stress with that particular person, so that nervous system and the endocrine system response becomes appropriate to, or becomes understood by the body to understand specifically how to adapt to that stress and give you the proper cellular response so you can actually get the benefit from doing it. Nervous system wise, as we said, has to do with muscle fiber involvement and which fibers are involved in what sequence, the timing, movement. Endocrine system, the body's trying to figure out which hormones do we fire right now. Is it more cortisol? Is it more epinephrine or adrenaline? Is it do we need insulin to uptake for more glucose? Is it more towards cortisol so we actually can increase fat metabolism in a process of transferring or in transporting fats? What exactly do we need specifically here? And that takes a long time for the body to become accustomed to that level of expectation. And if that stress goes beyond the level of the system's gain, of your body's ability to maintain homeostasis, to recover from the stress, then whatever stress you may have undergone here is just futile and unnecessary. It's not how hard can you challenge the body. It's not how much can you undertake. It's the right stress, the right amount of time, the right intensity to get the right benefit. That's the general adaptation syndrome we are looking for. And that said, in the perfect world, we get the proper benefits by getting that right stress, the proper recovery between days of doing it, also between sets in which we perform it, and hopefully we're performing at the right tempo. That's not included in here, let alone movement skill itself, but certainly the duration of time we do it for during the work periods, as well as the intensity in which we do it. If all those things are applied ideally well, then we see improvement over time. Perfect world, be a Monday you do a great workout, then you are a great training session. We don't like to use the word workout because it implies randomness. I'm going to go work out. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. We're going to have a training session. So we specifically have a plan here with an idea in mind of an overall goal, let alone a daily goal of what we're hoping to accomplish specifically today by setting out a previously designed plan for the day or the session, not just randomly go out there and start working out. Everybody needs a day or a time to go out there and just exercise and just have fun. But generally speaking, if we're looking to get somewhere, we have to know where we are and where we want to go, and we have to have a specific plan to get there. Otherwise, it's going to be random results. And that said, if we do this well, it's not Monday and then come back again Tuesday and it's getting better, and Wednesday's better than Tuesday, and Thursday's better than Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday. It doesn't work like that. It takes much longer time to be able to do that. We're talking about, before you really see a significant change, we're talking at least several weeks in most cases. It can be less. Everyone's response is a little bit different depending on what expectation you're having here. Move a little bit better. You might move a little bit better by tomorrow. You might feel a little bit better by the next few days. But actually seeing significant changes as far as muscle growth and actual strength, that's several weeks at least to see those things actually happen. Really 7 to 10 weeks, generally speaking, for significant changes in hypertrophy, which is where you get the actual strength benefit when you're talking about either strength endurance, or you're talking about, which is essentially the endurance that goes on towards cardiovascular endurance. If the movement is the same, you're training with strength endurance towards cardiovascular capacity for an endurance type sport, or for hypertrophy or growth of a given muscle or strength or power. Any of those things. You're looking at least several weeks before you start to see a significant gain from the strength you're working on. Everything that happens in those 7 weeks prior to that is more towards neuromuscular facilitation, good coordination improvement, improving basic flexibility and moving a little better by getting the proper neural connections and the proper endocrine system response once again. That's what we're getting those first several weeks. Then we see more broader changes in the body as time goes on. And that said, of course, keeping this going at this level is really, really difficult. It's often said, many times people say, you don't need a trainer, you don't need a specialist, you don't need a coach. That is just preposterous. Every single person, if they want to see the maximum benefit in what they do, needs to have help. No one succeeds at the elite levels on their own. No one can maximize their own results without the help of more than one person, probably not just one. So that's why theoretically as a personal trainer, we are looking to be the trainer for a particular client or the coach for a particular athlete, but we might consult other coaches to help us to be able to coach our athletes or to coach our trainers or to coach our clients as personal trainers, or enlist the help of a dietitian for helping with diet, or a physical therapist for help with injuries and problems, or a medical doctor for help with medical issues and medical concerns. And even going deeper than that, maybe it's a therapist or psychologist psychologist or psychiatrist, depending on someone's needs, for a more focus on what's going on in their lives and the stress they undergo each and every day. There's always more. But from a standpoint of exercise, absolutely every single human being needs a good personal trainer. Doesn't mean they're going to get one, but that would be the ideal now, wouldn't it? Ideal and what actually happens in real life are two very different things. And finding the right trainer, of course, the right professional, the right person to help anyone out for anything is crucial. And that said, optimum training, as difficult as it may be, the pursuit of optimal training often results, unfortunately, in overtraining, whereby someone undergoes a stress that isn't the most ideal. They're perhaps trying to accomplish too long of a walk and haven't walked in a long time, or a jog or a run, or they're trying to lift a weight and haven't lifted much of anything. They try to go for a much bigger dumbbell or cable load or machine load than they've lifted in a long time or ever, rather than just the lowest possible load, just performing the basic action of the movement. Basics first. We all want to take big steps. We haven't taken step 1. We want step 3 and 4. Step 1's first, not 3 or 4, right? What's step 1? Don't know. We'll never know until we actually work with each individual person. There's no such thing as a program that's perfect for everyone. It doesn't exist. There are top athletes who are the best in their field, and they have completely different ways of getting to that point. There's so many possible potential ways. We have to know what's best by spending the proper time with the people we're trying to help, to understand what that might be, on top of the science that we're supposed to know and be able to understand once we know the individual characteristics and capabilities and limitations of the person we're helping or attempting to help. That said, if we have the rest periods being too short, it's a very common thing these days, and it just is very aggravating as a professional watching this happen. People having work periods that are several minutes or more with rest periods of 30 seconds or less. Not sure what you're going for there, but that is actually cardiovascular type endurance. That is low-level type endurance work. And someone will say, no, we're working at high intensity. It's actually not physiologically possible. Bioenergetics tells us that ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, only lasts a few seconds. Once you go to the next level of energy production or output, it gives you another push for about 90-95% effort. It's about 10-15 seconds-ish, give or take. Then you want to keep going? Great, no problem, but your body's not going to be able to give you maximal output. Now you're looking at 85-90% for the next 30-45 seconds. You get to about a minute or more, now you're dropping down at the best case 80-85%, 75% output. Not your level of expectation of effort. How hard you're trying is really high, but the actual output is low. Form breaks down. People learn bad technique, bad form, increase injury potential, and force the issue. Unfortunately, a lot of things we do in training is not so simple to measure, so it's hard to tell when someone's doing this, which is why we have to be so clear about what the expectation is for the movement itself, number one. Then the expectation for the exercise itself. And it should not be, let's get the heart rate up, let's burn calories, let's burn fat. Those things are all benefits we want to be able to get. We want to burn calories. We want to have an increase in metabolism. We're not trying to raise the heart rate, but we know it's going to inherently happen to some extent with exercise. But theoretically, the person in the room with the best performance is going to probably have the lowest heart rate, which defies, of course, that same concept whereby we seem to think that raising the heart rate or raising the intensity is always the way to go. That's not necessarily true. In fact, what you can have is, by having too low recovery, all of a sudden you start losing performance, start getting worse, but you probably don't see it. In fact, what often comes with overtraining is a desire to train harder. When you're performing poorly, typically speaking, overtraining is a very strong probability for the person who we're talking about here if they have a desire to work harder and getting more frustrated with the fact they're not getting where they want to go. Because your body's saying, no, we don't have it right now. You're forcing the issue. You're asking for too much work, too much length of duration of work, or too much intensity, or too much shorter rest. Maybe it's the trifecta of stupidity, as we like to call it. I've done it. Almost every person who's actually trained at an attempted elite level or at an elite level, mine was attempted, then they certainly have pushed the issue whereby the rest was too short and the work period was too long and the intensity was too high. That's called the trifecta of stupidity. That's called overtraining guaranteed, whereby you may be looking at months or years of recovery. Mine, it was years. Mine was 2 years before I actually felt good enough again to go out and run again, because I ran so hard, tried so hard to run an elite Olympic level type workouts with the attempt to be an Olympian without realizing I was running at the elite high school, moderate level, college level. I need to work on that level first. Let's get the next level. Before you start worrying about the place you want to be, you got to know where you are. That's how we start to avoid overtraining. We measure resting heart rate. We measure the heart rate when you come in the room before you start the workout, the training session. We measure the heart rate at the end of every set. Yes, heart rate's a crucial part of everything we do to measure. RPE, rate of perceived exertion. What's your level of exertion right now? If the exertion is high and the output is low, what we're doing is not beneficial. Perfect world, what should happen is your effort level is not that high, output is super high. Consequently, we're getting higher output than the perception of output, which is exactly what should happen over time, of course. Early on, we start to get a feel for, I feel it's like a level 6, and it turns out you're about 60% force output. That's about right then. But perfect world, you're given a 60% effort and you're getting like a 90% output compared to what you used to get. It's still technically your current 60%, but it's what was once 90%. We're getting improvement because we're not pushing. We're trying to just go just a touch beyond, 1% beyond what we've been doing. Those are the ways we overcome or avoid, really, overtraining. Resting heart rate should not be getting higher, should be staying the same or going down. RPE should be staying the same or going down. Performance should be going up. Speed should be going up. Movement skills should be going up. The ability to lift greater loads, not necessarily every day, but certainly over time should be going up. You might have a down workout. Everybody has them. Don't force the issue and lift hard anyway. Take a break completely, stop working out today, stop training today, or do a lighter training session with the expectation that tomorrow's going to be better. These are the ways we avoid overtraining. We communicate with the people who are overtraining, help them understand what's going on. It's never a simple thing to figure out how best to deal with it to avoid long-term problems and just deal with short-term rest to get the point of being ready for going to that high-level stress again. And then finally, we have the concept of detraining from a standpoint of stress. If you take as little as 2 to 3 weeks off from doing cardiovascular work, which is essentially increasing your work capacity, your capacity to handle more work and perform more work over longer periods, over repetitive bouts, aspect of endurance is everything we do. Now, it's not always towards specifically just endurance, but endurance is a part of everything we do, everything. Okay. That said, there's also the force output. How much force can we produce? How strong are we? Explosively, standpoint of moving heavy loads, or just performing the ability to perform levels of strength, some capacity, right? All these are movement skill specific. Got to learn the skills before we start worrying about these other factors. But that said, if you take as little as 2 or 3 weeks off from doing these things, the nervous system has a harder time picking up on what was expected 2 or 3 weeks ago. The endocrine system has a harder time functioning with that. And you start to lose a little bit, just a little bit, as much as 5%, possibly at the high end, 5 to 7 to 8% of muscle mass over the course of a 2 or 3 week period. It all depends on numerous factors, how much is really lost. But you certainly will lose the force production capacity, the work capacity of around 5%-ish, as much as 7-10% in as little as 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the person. It might be a little bit slower, but that's a pretty good number. Take 2 or 3 months off, you're looking at seeing that go 10, 15, 20+%, maybe 30% or more. It's going to dramatically increase. So as a general rule, we try to avoid taking more than 2 to 3 weeks off from exercise. Perfect world, that's December 15th to January 2nd. That's not what's going to happen in most cases with most people. They're going to take more than 2 to 3 weeks off, probably at regular intervals throughout the rest of their lives. It's life. I think it goes on, but you cannot expect great things if you're not putting forth the time and the effort and the work into it. To expect someone to make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year income, generally speaking, you have to expect to be putting in more than a typical 40-hour type work week, more like a 50, 60, 80-hour type work week. Then, when you get there, you can downscale hours and not expect to have to put quite so much time and effort in to keep that level of income. The same is true of fitness, health, overall performance. We want all these things. Health's number one most important part, then performance. Fitness is really the last one. How you look is important, and it will change. The more you have a performance goal, the more likely you are to meet that goal of fitness and how you look, as well as health, as well as performance. We want all three: health, fitness, performance, and they are not necessarily the same things. We have to make sure we understand that. It's a hard process. It's difficult to manage the proper stress, getting the proper adaptation to whatever stress we're trying to undergo, then hopefully getting the benefit of optimal training, not overtraining, and we definitely want to avoid the detraining by not taking too much time off. Things happen, it's okay, but we also have to be easier on ourselves or easier on those people we're trying to help with understanding that, hey, it's okay. Life goes on. You didn't meet your goals this week or this last month or maybe this last year, maybe 2, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows? It's time to move on. Here we are today. Let's make a change. Let's do the right things. Let's get started again.